Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Curseof and welcome back to another video. Today we're here for some more Speed Duel content because I am back on that Speed Duel grind because we gotta keep this game alive. And today we are here with a brand new series sort of thing on the channel. Today we're here with a series called Is This Viable? Basically, me and Terramaster are going to be taking some of the new cards that we know are being added to the Speed Duel Battle City box. We're going to throw them in a deck, maybe with a few extra cards that we think might get added with them. And we're going to bring it to you guys and say, hey, is this deck now viable? And like I just said, I am joined by none other than the YuGiOh Legacy guy himself, Terramaster.
Hey, how's it going? New cards. I love new cards.
New cards, new cards. But yeah, so for this very first episode of Is This Viable, we're going to be going over the XYZ monsters being added. For those of you who have no idea about what cards are being added, it was basically revealed that we're going to have XYZ Dragon Cannon added in the Speed Duel Battle City box, and I believe it was also officially revealed that X, Y, and Z will be added. Although I could be incorrect in saying that.
I don't know if that was like if they went out and straight up said it about those three, but I mean, come on. If you add XYZ Dragon Cannon,
exactly.
like, you have to, right?
Exactly. So they announced officially XYZ, and I believe they weren't not officially announced, but we know the three fusion materials are being added. And along with that, we also added the other fusion options for the XYZ mechanic. We have XY, XZ, and YZ. They're all okay. They're a lot more easy to access, especially since, you know, we are playing XYZs without a skill. But anyway, we'll have a nice little duel going on in the background here for you guys while we discuss, is this deck viable? Before I go any further into this video, I'd like to ask you guys that if you do enjoy my content, and if you enjoy this video at the end of it, please hit that subscribe button. According to my channel analytics, 69.6 of you who've watched my videos in the last 28 days are not subscribed. That is a astounding percent of you guys. So if you wanted to take that little bit of extra time to hit that subscribe button, it would be greatly, greatly appreciated. But anyway, let's get into the video.
Yep, so sadly, I'm going to go ahead and straight up answer the question. Sadly, XYZ Dragon Cannon, the boss monster itself, is way too hard to summon just by giving us the three pieces individually and not any further support or any other skill like you said. So short answer is no, but let's talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, so obviously the XYZ Dragon Cannon is a very, very powerful boss monster, but you will basically never ever summon it while playing this deck. So what we're actually going to delve into a little bit more for you guys is the actual individual pieces. I'll bring up a sample deck that me and Terramaster went ahead and threw together. This is playing the Spellproof Armor skill, and you guys will see it is fairly reminiscent of Spellproof Armor from last format, but we have the XYZ pieces in here.
Yeah, and the focus is on X-Head Cannon because that's obviously solves a big problem for the Spellproof Armor deck that was in last format, and that is that the lack of power. Like 1750 Pendulum Machine being weaker than even Gearfried.
Yeah.
And Zoma was a big issue in the meta that it was played in. So just having that 50 attack point boost means a lot.
Exactly, exactly. And on that, naturally in this deck, we did go ahead and max out on X-Head Cannon as he is the biggest buff being added with the whole XYZ archetype as a whole. With Spellproof Armor in the deck, he's immune to spell cards, and he's an 1800 beat stick. He's going to match Zoma, he's going to match Gearfried. Yes, Gaia's still going to swing over it, but like that's just life. Gaia's the only 1900 beat stick we have. We got to live with that. But a very, very needed buff to the deck. But moving on to the other two additions here, Y Dragonhead and Z Metal Tank, very underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, because there's no way in Speed Duels right now to quickly get them out alongside your X-Head Cannon, and on their own, they're just bad cards. They're just weak vanilla machines pretty much because they do not have an effect, essentially, unless there's another one of them on the field like alone they're garbage, and that's the problem here. Is that they're not going to be good without more support, and not just any support. Like it has to be actually like some of the halfway decent union support that exists in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Exactly. So basically, we have one copy of each in here, just because X-Head Cannon, he is an 1800 beat stick. He does have the ability to survive on the field for a turn on his own, and if you get him to survive and you can summon a Z Metal Tank or a Y Dragon Head, you might have access into one of the 2 fusion material fusion options that you have here. Going over some of these, we have YZ, which is the one you will probably never summon, and that's why we only have one copy in the extra deck, because getting your Y Dragon Head and your Z Metal Tank, 2 1-ofs in your deck, and having them both survive is not looking too good. But basically, they all have their discard cost, and you can pop something here. So your YZ is going to let you pop a face-down monster on the field, which is actually probably one of the more relevant effects out of all the ones added.
Yeah, definitely. You can use it on, I mean, you look at current Speed Duel meta, there's New Dorias, there's Command Knights even being set from the Warrior decks.
Yep.
There are Apprentice Magicians floating into things, which some people really hate. There's flip effect monsters like Dekoichi and Old Vindictive being played. So set monsters and being able to destroy them is actually relevant.
Exactly. Going on to the next one here, we have the XZ Tank Cannon. This one, once again, the normal discard 1 card cost here. This one is target 1 face down spell or trap your opponent controls and destroy that target. At first glance, seems like it could be good. And then you realize if they activate the spell or trap, it's now a face up spell or trap and your effect fizzles.
Yeah, exactly. So with all the chainable back row that we have in Speed Duels right now, it ends up being a bad effect because you essentially discard just to mess up the timing of your opponent's activation, which is like main phase and battle phase.
Yeah, exactly. So very underwhelming. Like honestly, the only thing you're going to be able to hit is maybe a battle trap in a more like anti-meta sort of deck. Or you'll hit an Offerings that is only good against your Zomas. Great job.
Yep. Exactly.
But moving on to the very last fusion monster, that is the XY Dragon Cannon. Once again, the normal discard cost, and this one allows you to target a face-up spell or trap card your opponent controls and destroy that target. This one actually does have a little bit of relevance. Not as good as the YZ, but it can pop Zomas. People still do play Nightmare Wheels every now and again. So, you know, there's a little bit of application there on the YZ.
Right, exactly. And for all these, I'm going to call them mini-boss monsters of the deck, the benefit that it could potentially have for these cards would be depending on if the meta evolves or not, like how it evolves is what I'm trying to say. So if there's more continuous traps that are in the post-box meta, then XY is going to be a good fusion monster, right? If there's more battle traps, like you mentioned, then was it XZ? Yeah, XZ is going to be relevant. So it just depends on what's meta, really.
Exactly. And I know we actually didn't go over the effect for XYZ, but XYZ is basically discard to target 1 card and pop it. So he's the generic one. Anything on the field, he's able to pop, but he does cost all 3 of your monsters and is very niche to ever come out. You might be able to get him out against maybe a stall deck if you're really lucky.
yeah. Against the stall deck, if they just sit there and let you, which they might if you don't attack into their, because they're usually their way of removing your monsters is you having to attack. But other than that, there's really not a viable way to get out XYZ Dragon Cannon. One quick note about its effect though is that it's not limited to once per turn.
Yeah.
I always find this kind of cool, is that as long as you have, say, like 3 cards in your hand somehow after summoning this, and your opponent has 3 cards on the field, you can clear their entire field, potentially.
Exactly, and none of the monsters available for the, none of the fusion summons available are once per turn effects. So you can hit as many face-ups or as many sets as possible as long as you have discard fodder available to you.
Yes. So obviously the goal is to play Floodgate Trap Hole into YZ, right?
Exactly. But so we did mention that obviously XZ Cannon is the best monster here, and we mentioned some relevant monsters that it goes up against. But let's go ahead and delve into the two best decks of this current format, that being Conflict Warrior and Moth Warrior, and what kind of matchups it has against these decks. If you want to go ahead and start off with the Tier 1 deck of this format, please feel free, Terra Master.
You're gonna make me talk about Conflict. Okay.
Yep, I always make you talk about it.
Yeah, I understand why. I played it a lot. Well, it helps that as long as they play Gearfried, at least, and they will continue to play Zoma, that at least you can match the attack points of those two monsters, and if there happens to be a Command Knight in attack mode that you can target with an attack for some reason because there's no other monsters, then sure, you can do that too. One thing I'll say is, if you notice the deck that we showed, skill successors in there.
Yep.
And our reasoning behind that was essentially, yes, you are now tied with some of their monsters in attack, but there's still that 1900 barrier that you can't cross over without a boost. And skill successor is really good in that it gives you not one, but it can give you potentially that boost twice. And the second time, what's really relevant against Conflict right now is it can have your XZ Cannon get over a Jinzo.
Exactly. Jinzo obviously only negates trap effects on the field, so an engrave, banish skill successor to gain 800 can be very, very relevant.
Yeah, and not only that, if you're not having to deal with a Jinzo, if you're only dealing with, say, Charging Gaia, then that second skill successor graveyard effect can even make your Y or Z even get over a Charging Gaia, which is, very niche, but it could happen.
It could potentially come up. It exists, right? And
right.
These scenarios, they do happen every now and again, so it's still important to note these things.
Yeah. And one great thing about skill successor is that if you can make a 2-card fusion, if you pull that off, then skill successor can protect it from almost anything, or have it run over a Jinzo like no problem.
Exactly. But even with all this, these little added buffs, like the fact that you have a couple 15s that can swing over Charging Gaia, and you can match Zoma, and you can match Gearfried, still inherently a very bad matchup.
Yep. If you were still to get these cards right now and try playing this deck, you would still have to, as we are, side Inner Conflict and just turn it into a mirror match with a few machines in your deck, like as techs, I guess. But yeah, you still kind of have to do what we have to do with Spellproof Armor right now, which is make it a mirror and then hope you win the mirror.
Exactly, which is obviously very far from ideal, and this deck continues to have a bad Conflict matchup. But going into the better matchup for this deck, the Moth matchup, we actually have a decent matchup against this deck. I mean, it always has been, but it's just gotten better with the addition of XZ Cannon.
Yep, because Warrior Moth will almost for sure play Gearfrieds and Zomas. Now, the ratio varies on who's playing it, but you can match their attack now. You have attack point boosting traps, which there's no Jinzo, so there's less Jinzo, let's say that, right? So those traps are a lot more relevant. And finally, your skill, Spellproof Armor. They can't parasite your machines. That's what makes Spellproof Armor always so good against Moth. And now it's a stronger machine tap monster in XZ Cannon that you're protecting.
Exactly. So you have your big 1800 body that can match or swing over a lot of their monsters, and you have the skill that naturally counters their whole little combo thing here, which is very, very powerful. And if you can get access into Jinzo, they literally need Moth to kill your monster. So they're going to have to spend their own monsters, and they're going to have to, dare I say, go neutral off of their skill.
Yes, exactly. And if you force them to do that, really, you made it a fair fight. And against a deck as powerful as Moth, unless you're playing Conflict, that's kind of the best you can hope for.
Exactly. So this deck has just as good as matchup as ever versus the Moth deck, and has just gotten that little bit of an extra buff with access to X head cannon. Honestly, Y and Z really don't help the matchup much at all. I mean, honestly, the only thing I can really see Y or Z being relevant for at all is maybe a stall matchup, because you might be able to get access into these two monster fusions, and they can actually swing over these weaker monsters, and you're okay losing your garbage Y and Z instead of losing an X head cannon. So, Newdoria, please.
Yes. No, you're 100% correct there, because it's Y and Z are so good with the proper support, but they are just as bad without any support. So, just leave it at that.
Exactly. So, the verdict is XYZs, with the current support being added that we know about, viable?
No.
It's just as good as it is currently. Honestly, X-Head Cannon does not offer enough of a buff for us to move this deck up at all. It is still just counter Moth and lose to everything else.
Yeah. Counter Moth, hope you get lucky against Conflict.
Yep.
That's it.
So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button down below and also consider subscribing. 69.6% of you are not subscribed who watch my videos. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Also, check down in the description. There will be a link to YuGiOh Legacy, both the YouTube channel and the Discord. This is where Terramaster does all his stuff. Fantastic guy, fantastic content. Please check him out. But anyway, I'll catch you guys probably next week for another episode of Is This Viable? Anyway, that's a wrap, guys. I'll catch you guys all, if not tomorrow, the following day. Peace.